What if the person you trusted most turned out to be the one who betrayed you? In a high-stakes corporate world, love and loyalty blur, and what seems like a perfect match can quickly become a dangerous game. Follow the story of Ethan, a CEO who's willing to risk everything to change a company, and Claire, a dedicated employee caught between ambition, love, and a shocking betrayal that will change everything. Who will come out on top when business and love collide? But before we go any further into the story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. My goal is to reach 2,000 subscribers before Christmas, and I'd love for you to be part of this journey. Once upon a time? No, let's make that right now. In the heart of the city, in a sleek, high-rise office building, a new chapter was about to begin, one that no one could have predicted. The corporate world was ruthless, filled with ambition, power moves, and secrets. But for Claire, this wasn't just about climbing a ladder, it was about survival. Claire had just landed her dream job at one of the most prestigious companies in the city. A fresh start, a new opportunity. But what she didn't know was that the office she was walking into was not as welcoming as it seemed. Behind the polished glass doors and expensive suits, something darker was brewing. A power struggle between the management and a new team of executives, all clawing for control. As Claire sat at her new desk, the hum of the office was almost deafening. The walls whispered of old rivalries and hidden agendas, and her boss, Ethan, had a reputation, one that was as spotless as his tailored suits, but Claire wasn't sure she could trust it. But little did she know, this job would pull her into a whirlwind of corporate betrayal, love, and unexpected twists. The journey was just beginning. Claire had always been driven by one simple truth: success is earned, not given. After years of proving herself, she was finally promoted to senior executive at one of the top corporate firms in the city. It was an achievement she'd worked tirelessly for, but there was something in the air at this new office that made her feel uneasy. Something different about this time, this promotion. The company was undergoing significant changes. There were rumors that the management was about to shift entirely, and there were whispers of new blood coming in. Just as Claire settled into her role, Ethan Collins, the young and charismatic CEO, was announced as the new face of the company. His arrival was no small matter. At just 30, Ethan was already a well-established figure in the business world, known for his innovative ideas and bold approach to leadership. When Ethan stepped into the boardroom on his first day, all eyes were on him. Claire stood among the crowd of senior executives, observing him with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Ethan's reputation preceded him: sharp, ambitious, and a natural-born leader. But as he addressed the room with a confident smile, Claire couldn't help but wonder, what did he want from all of them? Despite his polished exterior, there was something undeniably unsettling about him. As if he was constantly calculating, weighing his options, and sizing people up. For someone so young, he had a magnetic pull that made everyone listen, and Claire could see why he had been chosen to lead. But she also knew from experience that appearances could be deceiving, and behind every sharp mind was a calculated ambition. "I'm here to make this company the best it can be," Ethan declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "I've come to turn things around, and that starts with change. I'm not here to play it safe. And neither should you." Claire felt a flicker of unease. Ethan was obviously more than just a corporate executive. He was a man who thrived on power and control, and his words made it clear that anyone who couldn't keep up with his vision would be left behind. It was clear to Claire that his leadership style was going to shake things up, and not everyone was going to make it through the storm. Weeks passed, and Claire found herself working closely with Ethan on a series of strategic plans. He was impressive, no doubt about it, sharp, decisive, and always one step ahead. But his methods were ruthless, and he had no patience for failure. Claire quickly learned that to get along with Ethan, one had to be as bold and unyielding as he was. Yet, the more she observed him, the more Claire sensed something beneath the surface. There was more to Ethan than what he allowed others to see, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. As they worked together on the upcoming merger with a competing firm, Claire noticed Ethan's unrelenting drive to push everything and everyone to the edge. His aggressive strategies were starting to make the other senior executives uncomfortable. Many of them had been with the company for years, and Ethan's methods were foreign to them. But Claire, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity. She could either challenge Ethan's leadership or align with him and use his vision to further her own ambitions. After all, Claire had been climbing the corporate ladder for years, and this position was the closest she had ever come to achieving her dream. She wasn't about to let anyone, even Ethan, stop her. But the more she watched him, the more she realized that Ethan wasn't playing by the same rules she was. He wasn't just trying to take over the company. He was setting his sights on something much bigger. One afternoon, while working late on a presentation, Claire found herself alone in the office with Ethan. His usual confidence was gone, replaced by a rare moment of vulnerability. Ethan turned to her, his eyes sharp, but there was a flicker of something else there, something she hadn't seen before. "I know you're not like the others," he said quietly, his voice holding a weight she hadn't expected. "You're not afraid to take risks, to challenge the status quo." Claire couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at his words. It was the first time he'd shown any real acknowledgement of her abilities. But as quickly as the moment came, it was gone. Ethan flashed that signature smile, the one that always made him appear untouchable. "I'll make you a promise, Claire," he continued, his tone now businesslike. "If you stick with me, we'll make this company unbeatable." Claire nodded, masking the uncertainty bubbling beneath the surface. She had no idea what Ethan's true intentions were, but she knew this was a pivotal moment in her career. She would either align herself with him or be crushed under the weight of his ambition. The seeds of trust and distrust were planted that day. Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she had just entered into a dangerous game, one where winning would mean more than just success. It would mean survival. Claire stood before the towering glass windows of her office, staring out at the bustling city below. It had been weeks since Ethan had taken over as CEO, and already, things were changing in ways she hadn't anticipated. Despite his youth, Ethan seemed to have an uncanny ability to sway people, to make them believe in his vision, his unwavering belief that his way was the only way. The pressure was building. Claire had been working long hours to help push through the company's merger with one of its fiercest competitors, but the longer she spent with Ethan, the more the cracks in his polished persona began to show. He was ruthless, demanding, and focused on his own goals, no one else's. The idea of loyalty didn't seem to hold much weight with him. But Claire couldn't deny that there was something magnetic about him. As much as she disliked the manipulative side of Ethan's personality, she couldn't help but admire his brilliance. Every strategy he devised, every move he made, seemed designed to secure power not just in the company, but over the very lives of those who worked for him. Yet, behind all his charisma, Claire sensed that Ethan wasn't as invincible as he appeared. There were moments, rare moments, when he let down his guard. Moments when he looked at the city not with the confidence of a conqueror, but with the weariness of a man who had been fighting battles for too long. On one such evening, Claire was working late in her office when she heard a knock at the door. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. "Can we talk?" Ethan's voice was softer than usual. Claire looked up, surprised to see him standing there without his usual air of confidence. There was something in his eyes now, something that made her feel as if she were on the verge of seeing the man behind the mask. She gestured for him to come in, and Ethan took a seat across from her, his posture less rigid than she was used to. "I need you to trust me," he said quietly, his voice almost pleading. Claire frowned, not sure how to respond. Trust was a currency in this company that wasn't easily spent, especially when it came to someone like Ethan, who had a reputation for stepping on others to get ahead. "You know I'm not one to trust easily," Claire said, choosing her words carefully. "You've made it clear that you're here to change things, but at what cost?" Ethan ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "It's not just about changing things, Claire. It's about survival. Do you think this company can survive in its current state? We're not just competing with other companies. We're competing with the world." Claire remained silent, studying his face. He had a point. The world was changing fast, and corporate giants were falling every day. If they didn't evolve, they would be left behind. But she still didn't trust him. His approach was too cold, too calculating. "Then show me that you're more than just a power-hungry CEO," Claire said. Show me that you can be the leader this company needs. Ethan's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Claire wondered if she'd pushed him too far. But then, something shifted in him. His expression softened. I don't have time for games, Claire, he said, his voice low but earnest. This isn't just business. I'm trying to make something that lasts. For everyone. Claire didn't know if she believed him. She didn't know if she ever would. But something about his sincerity made her second-guess herself. Maybe Ethan wasn't the villain she thought him to be. Maybe there was more to his story than he was letting on. I'm in, Claire finally said, her voice steady. Ethan smiled, a brief, fleeting smile. Good. Let's make sure we're on the same page. As Ethan left the office, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into a game she didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear, she couldn't afford to lose. Not when her future, and possibly her heart, were tied up in the same web. The days following Claire's decision to work alongside Ethan felt like walking a tightrope. She couldn't ignore the underlying tension. There was a fine line between working together and being manipulated, and Claire wasn't sure where she stood anymore. Ethan's strategies had been bold. He was cutting costs in departments that once seemed untouchable, consolidating power in his own hands while promising change to the rest of the company. The merger was moving forward, but with every passing day, Claire could sense a deeper unease among the staff. What had once been a team that prided itself on collaboration was now divided, with Ethan's loyalists growing in numbers, while the rest of the employees whispered among themselves. Claire had always prided herself on understanding people, but she couldn't figure out Ethan. She couldn't figure out if he genuinely wanted to build something sustainable, or if this was all part of a larger, more personal agenda. And then, one day, her suspicions turned into reality. It happened during a routine meeting. The head of HR, Sarah, had been acting strangely for a while. Claire had noticed that Sarah seemed to be avoiding her, not making eye contact, and keeping things strictly professional. It wasn't like Sarah at all. The two had worked closely together for years, and Claire had always trusted her judgment. But something was off now. During the meeting, Claire saw Sarah pass Ethan a folder under the table. The action was quick, discreet, but Claire's eyes never missed a detail. The folder contained information about an upcoming staff reduction, and not just any cuts. The cuts targeted the departments that were already struggling the most. Claire's stomach churned. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Claire stood up and walked straight to Ethan's office. She didn't knock. She didn't need to. Is this what we're doing now? Claire's voice was steady, though her heart was pounding. Ethan looked up, unfazed. Doing what? The cuts. The staff reductions. Claire's gaze flicked to the folder still on Ethan's desk. You're going to destroy people's lives for the sake of profit. And for what? To make yourself look better? Ethan leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. The company needs to evolve, Claire. Some sacrifices are necessary. Claire shook her head, fighting back the anger. There's a difference between evolution and exploitation. Ethan's gaze hardened. I didn't ask you to be a moral compass, Claire. I asked you to help me save this company. I'm making the tough calls so you don't have to. Claire's world tilted. For a moment, she was speechless. She had thought they were in this together, but she had been wrong. Ethan wasn't playing the same game. He wasn't trying to build a company for the future. He was building it for himself. You're not the leader I thought you were, Claire said quietly, her voice thick with disappointment. I can't be part of this anymore. Ethan stood up, walking toward her. If you want to leave, then leave. But don't think for a second that this company will survive without me. You'll see. One day you'll understand. With that, Claire turned and left the office, her heart heavy with the weight of betrayal. She had given him her trust, her belief that he could change. But in the end, Ethan had only proven that power was the only thing that mattered to him. It was late into the night when Claire finally found herself in her office, staring at the cold, fluorescent glow of her computer screen. The merger had reached a critical stage, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was in the middle of a storm she had no control over. Ethan's actions, his constant drive for control, his willingness to sacrifice employees for profit, had broken something in her. She felt like she was no longer working for a company, but rather playing a part in a game she didn't understand. But Claire had never been the type to walk away from a challenge. As much as she wanted to quit, to cut ties with Ethan and his ruthless agenda, she knew she couldn't. Not when there was still work to be done. Not when the company was at the crossroads of success and failure. But then something unexpected happened. The one person Claire had relied on, Sarah, came to her office, her face pale and worried. "I need to tell you something," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's about Ethan." Claire looked at her in surprise. "What about him?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I've been working with him on the merger and the staff cuts. I didn't want to, but I had no choice. He's threatening to fire me if I don't comply." Claire felt her heart drop. This wasn't just about the company anymore. Ethan's manipulation was running deeper than she thought. "Sarah, you don't have to do this. We can stop him together," Claire said, standing up. Sarah shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "It's not that simple. He's dangerous, Claire. If we don't play by his rules, we lose everything." Claire knew what she had to do. The betrayal wasn't just from Ethan. It had infected the very core of the company. But Claire wasn't going to stand by and let it continue. "I'm going to stop him," Claire said, her voice steady with determination. "I'll expose him for what he really is. And, together, we'll take this company back." The next few days at the office felt like a war zone. Claire had made her decision. She was going to fight Ethan and expose the corruption he had hidden beneath his polished exterior. But the stakes were higher than she had imagined. Ethan wasn't just a corporate executive. He was a manipulator, a puppet master pulling strings in every corner of the office. Claire knew that if she moved against him directly, it would be a battle for the company itself. She had Sarah on her side now, and together they began digging into Ethan's past decisions. They uncovered questionable financial transactions, altered reports, and a trail of questionable alliances that led back to the very top. One evening, as Claire sat with Sarah in her office, her phone buzzed. It was an email from Ethan, an invitation to dinner. He was trying to reel her back in. The email was casual, but Claire knew the game he was playing. Sarah looked at Claire nervously. "He's trying to get to you. You can't trust him." Claire stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She could feel the tension building. Ethan wasn't going to let her go easily. He was too invested in the power he had claimed. But Claire wasn't about to be intimidated. She typed her response, confirming the dinner, but with one condition: they would meet at a public restaurant, somewhere neutral. The dinner arrived, and Claire sat across from Ethan at a crowded bistro. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his charming smile never leaving his face. But there was an air of something darker beneath the surface. "You've been avoiding me," Ethan said, swirling his glass of wine. "What's the matter, Claire? Don't you trust me?" Claire looked him in the eye, her voice calm but firm.
"No, Ethan.
I don't trust you. And I'm not the only one." Ethan's smile faltered for just a moment before it returned, albeit a little colder. "Is that so? People are starting to see through you," Claire continued. "You think you can manipulate everyone, but it won't last. Not if I have anything to say about it." Ethan's expression hardened, his tone turning icy. "You're playing a dangerous game, Claire. You don't know who you're dealing with." Claire leaned forward. "I'm not afraid of you, Ethan. The truth is on my side." The dinner ended with neither side yielding. Claire left the restaurant feeling more certain than ever that Ethan wasn't just a rival. He was a threat, and she was going to take him down. The weeks that followed were a blur of backroom meetings, secretive emails, and quiet conversations behind closed doors. Claire knew she was getting closer to exposing Ethan, but the closer she got, the more she felt like she was treading on dangerous ground. Her every move was being watched, and she couldn't afford to slip up. One day, as Claire was preparing for an all-important presentation, she received an anonymous tip. The source had revealed crucial information about Ethan's involvement in a deal with a rival company, an illegal one that could cost the company millions. The timing couldn't have been better. Claire is about to present her findings to the board, and this new revelation could be the smoking gun she needed to bring Ethan down. As the board meeting began, Claire stood before the room of executives, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. Ethan was seated at the head of the table, his usual air of superiority plastered on his face. "Ladies and gentlemen," Claire began, "today we're here to discuss the future of this company and what's been happening behind the scenes. I've uncovered some alarming discrepancies in our financial reports." She clicked through the slides, detailing the financial mismanagement, the forged documents, and the questionable transactions. But when she reached the final slide, the room fell silent. "There's more," Claire said, her voice unwavering. "Ethan has been involved in illegal dealings with a rival company. A deal that, if it goes public, could cost us everything." Gasps filled the room. Ethan's face turned pale, but he quickly regained his composure. "This is absurd," he said, standing up. "This is a smear campaign. Claire is trying to ruin me." But Claire wasn't finished. She presented the evidence, emails, transaction records, and even photographs that proved Ethan's betrayal. The room was silent as the truth came to light. The board members were in shock, but Claire didn't give them a chance to speak. "I've done what I had to do for the company. For all of you. Now, it's up to you to decide what happens next." The meeting ended in chaos. The board had no choice but to suspend Ethan until an investigation could be completed. Claire had won, at least for now. After the bombshell at the board meeting, the company was in turmoil. Ethan's suspension had sent shockwaves through the entire office. Employees whispered in hallways, some relieved and others fearful of what would come next. Claire felt the weight of her decision settling in. She had exposed Ethan, but the battle was far from over. As Claire prepared for the fallout, she found herself alone in her office, staring at the papers scattered across her desk. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. "Are you okay? We did it, but things are going to get worse before they get better." Claire typed back, "I know, but we can't let up. We need to keep pushing." The next day, Claire's fears were confirmed. Ethan had rallied a group of loyalists in the office, and they were fighting back. They spread rumors about Claire's actions, trying to undermine her credibility. But Claire didn't back down. She knew the truth would prevail. Meanwhile, Claire found herself spending more time with Ryan, the once aloof colleague who had become one of her most trusted allies. They had developed a bond through the struggle, and Claire realized she was beginning to see him in a new light. One evening, as they worked late together, Claire looked up from her laptop and caught Ryan's gaze. There was an unspoken connection between them, a tension neither could deny. And for the first time in a long time, Claire felt a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, there could be something more between them. Claire and Ryan's relationship deepened as they navigated the chaos left in the wake of Ethan's downfall. Their bond had been forged through shared struggle, and as they spent more time together, it became clear that their connection was more than just professional. Despite their growing feelings for each other, Claire couldn't afford to let her personal life get in the way of the company's future. The fight to rebuild had just begun. With Ethan out of the picture for now, Claire and Ryan worked tirelessly to stabilize the company, repairing the damage done by Ethan's actions. But even as things seemed to be improving, Claire felt a gnawing sense of unease. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Ethan's betrayal than just bad business decisions. And as the company's investigation into Ethan's dealings continued, a shocking discovery was made. Ethan had been planning a hostile takeover, using insider information to manipulate stock prices and weaken the company from within. The news sent shockwaves through the office. Ethan's actions were far worse than Claire had ever imagined. But now, with this new revelation, Claire had the ammunition she needed to permanently remove him from the company. As Claire and Ryan made their final plans to bring Ethan down once and for all, Claire realized that she had not only reclaimed the company, but she had found something she had never expected: love and trust in the most unlikely of places. The moment of reckoning had arrived. Claire and Ryan had spent weeks gathering evidence, preparing for the final confrontation with Ethan. They had everything they needed to end this battle once and for all. As the day of the showdown approached, Claire found herself in her office, looking at the city skyline. She thought back on everything that had led her here: the betrayal, the manipulation, and the countless sleepless nights.
But none of it mattered now.
Ethan was going down, and nothing would stand in her way. The meeting was set. Ethan was finally going to face the consequences of his actions. As they sat in the boardroom, Claire stood before the room full of executives. Ethan was there, his face tense and stoic. He knew what was coming. Claire began by outlining the full extent of Ethan's betrayal, the financial crimes, the manipulation, and the plan to take over the company. She presented the evidence, the smoking gun that would ensure his downfall. But then, just as the meeting was about to conclude, something unexpected happened. Ethan stood up, a wry smile playing on his lips. "You think this is over," he sneered. "You've only just begun to understand the game, Claire." But Claire wasn't afraid. "It's over, Ethan. You've lost. And you'll never take this company from me." With that, the board voted to remove Ethan from his position. His reign of manipulation had come to an end. With Ethan out of the picture, Claire was left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. The company, though battered, was still standing. And with Ryan by her side, Claire felt a renewed sense of hope. Together, they had not only saved the company but had also forged a future where trust, loyalty, and love could flourish. The company began to heal. Employees returned to their roles with newfound purpose, and the atmosphere of fear slowly dissolved. Claire had proven that leadership wasn't about power, it was about integrity. And in the end, it was that integrity that had won the battle. But as Claire looked ahead to the future, she knew that this was just the beginning. The corporate world was never predictable, but with Ryan by her side, Claire was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As she walked into the boardroom, the sun setting behind her, Claire knew that this new chapter in her life would be one of growth, transformation, and a love that had blossomed in the most unlikely of places. And, for the first time in a long while, Claire smiled, ready for whatever the future would bring.